in the spirit of fall community, I have begun participating in Pigskin Party with Nitty Natty and Boston Jen down Cellar podcast, I believe. And I last weekend, the community that I'm involved in at Lemon Stitches spent the weekend doing a knit-a-thon, sort of. Basically, like marathon knitting, finishing all your projects in preparation for cast-ons. This week for Pigskin, which is where you count every yard you knit. It has to be within 50 yards and up for points, and you're on teams. And Felix, please don't. Hey, of all the times. Welcome to Hear Her Hands. My name is Jennifer, and I am a knitter, crocheter, quilter, and sewist located in Baltimore, Maryland, where I live with my partner, and 2 miniature schnauzers, and 2 black cats. So here on my podcast, I talk about what I'm knitting, how it's going. I mostly talk about what I'm learning and my struggles, my confusion as a fairly new knitter who is disabled. Accessibility, not necessarily just in knitting, but in general. My partner and I are deaf. We live in Baltimore, Maryland, which is fairly close to 2 of the bigger epicenters for the deaf community in the United States. But today I'm going to talk mostly about finished objects, whips, hibernating projects, and things I've cast on fairly recently as part of Nitty Natty and Boston Jen community-wide event competition called Pigskin Party. So over the last week-ish, 2 weeks, I guess. So last weekend, the Love and Stitches membership, and I'm assuming Boston Jen's membership as well, did a marathon knitting weekend where we attempted to finish any projects that were lingering on our needles and prepare for casting on what we could at the beginning of Pigskin Party, which started on Thursday. So one of the finished objects I mentioned in my project planning podcast that had more to do with what I was planning on knitting and not what I had finished knitting is what I'm wearing. So I will probably put in like more close-up pictures to give you a better idea of what this looks like. But I have finished my Crail Cardigan, which was a test knit for the Crail Bea. So I knit my Crail in the size 1, and I knit it in Patton's classic wool worsted in the color Seafoam. And it is a really fun textured, all over cable knit cardigan with a round neck. This pattern is one of her typical mega patterns, and so it is a cardigan, a pullover, and a vest, I believe. And Might be more than that, actually. Yes, it is a cardigan, a pullover, and a vest, and I am knitting size 1. So I'm knitting the smallest size. The cool thing about this pattern was it had a lot of new techniques that I'd never done before. So one of the ones, so the raglan specifically was a really interesting. Raglan includes a purl inside the markers and 2 knits on either side, which basically makes for this really interesting patterning for the increases on the raglan. And it was worked in a very specific manner, and I believe there is a video that shows you the technique to do that in the pattern. But it was really fun, although it was complicated. And I personally, I've only been knitting for a couple of years as a new knitter, I had to watch the video for how to make the increases every time I got to that part of the pattern. But as you can see, it worked out very nicely, and it turned out beautiful. So I am wearing this open. I personally find it more comfortable that way, but it is meant to be more oversized than what I ended up with, and that is because I probably, for the ease required in the pattern, I probably should have been knitting a 2. But I knit a 1, and I really like the way it fits. It feels more like classic to me, like a classic 90s twin set style, kind of. But yeah, so the whole thing is all over honeycomb cable, which is this patterning. And then on the edges of the sleeve and the body here, you have a twisted 2 cable. There's 4 stitch cable twisted. And then under the sleeves and under the arm, you have moss stitch. So this is very satisfying knit. I personally really enjoy knitting a lot of texture. I find it interesting and satisfying, and this was hi. This is interesting and satisfying in the way that it required a decent amount of my attention, but once I got past the yoke part of it, it was very methodical and very easy to read my own knitting, which is saying a lot as someone who'd never knit this much cabling or knit from a chart before. This is the first time I ever learned to read a chart, so that is very exciting. So this pattern is not out yet. I believe it's coming out October. I can't remember. It's coming out relatively soon, but this is beautiful. I highly recommend the pattern, and I will be sure to share about it again and share a link to it when it goes live. But for right now, this is my Crail Cardigan, which is a test knit for the Crayola, and I had knit it in Patton's Classic Wool Worsted, which is a worsted weight, very typical wool, in the color Seafoam, which is also, I feel like the lighting in here is not great today. It's starting to threaten storming, so I'm doing what I can. But this is a good, soft summer color. It's soft and cool, and sort of muted. So this is my first finished object. I finished this during the finishing marathon, and I finally put the buttons on, found buttons that fit, and put buttons on yesterday. I'm not entirely sold on these pearlescent buttons, but they're what I could find. and say that the closing of Joann's makes things like finding buttons in person a lot more difficult than it used to be. So that is my current, what I'm wearing, and current finished object. Alright, so my next finished object that I finished in the midst of the finishing marathon was a pair of socks. I feel like I've shown these. So these were socks that I started during Getting Natty's sock week. And I knit them in a waffle, sort of a broken stitchy waffle knitty pattern. I don't know if you can see them. My face is in the way. So these are knit in a yarn that was part of the Sewing Stitches sock week. Like one of the sponsors. It was one of the sponsors. So these were by So Happy Jane, and they were the color Huckleberry Sunday. So very fun purpley, speckly. And then it came with two minis, so it came with this dark purpley blue, like indigo, and a sort of a magenta pink. So I knit those. I knit a pair of shorties. It did take me a while, and I did what kind of heel did I do? Do not recall. I don't know what that is. It was some kind of strong heel, I know that much. So like I did the increases, and then I did like increase up and then decrease back to the same amount of stitches that you had on the cast on, and then it up a little bit. So it is a shorty, so I didn't knit up that much after I decreased. But whoa, can you hear that? It's raining. Anyway, so these are my socks. I did these on a 56 stitch. Yes, these were a 56-foot stitch sock. Do I have anything else I finished? I did not finish, so this is a work in progress that is going to be going on the back burner. So now we'll go into work in progress. Right, so during our, people still biking that? So during our finish it marathon, I was working on finishing this gigantically long garter stitch. You done? You sit down? Let me know when you're done. Are you done? Hi, can you lay down? Can you lay down? Hi. Good boy. Don't bite me. Alright. Behave? Yeah. Okay. I think we're done. Right, so as I was saying, this is my like super long standing sort of, I call it sick knitting and hospital knitting. So this is the Sophie hood by Petite Knit, which now that I know how to do a hood, I feel like I don't really need a pattern. But this is Sophie hood. I am knitting this in Alpaca Warehouse blue in the color denim, and it is a very fluffy, very squishy light blue. I'm not sure this is actually my color, but my winter coat is blue, so it will go well. This is the alpaca. It's so soft. I apparently have no issues with alpaca. I have major issues with mohair. So this, unfortunately, I guess unless I end up in the hospital again, is going to be hibernated for now, even though I got all the way to the point where I was decreasing again. And I'm so close, but it won't be winter here until October, so we'll be fine. We'll manage, and also probably we'll do another hat because hats are fairly quick knit, I guess. So that one's there. So then, don't really have. I have a bunch of like half finished summer stuff that's gonna just get sidelined for now. I have the Brooklyn Raglan light, and I have knit probably 3 or 4 inches from the underarm at this point, so it's like I could feasibly wear it if I wanted to wear a crop shirt, but I don't like my shirts that crop, so that's going on the sidelines. Hopefully I can pick it up and finish it, but it's not something I can feasibly turn into a project for points, right? So it's just gonna wait for a while. So then, as far as projects for points, I have a couple of currently begun. Ow. I have 2 I've begun and some yarn I just received that will become another one that is also for points because it's from a pro shop sponsor. Uh-oh, somebody's out there. We'll get into. Please. Yikes, we tingled. Oh, it's sitting on it. Okay, so we're going to go into some of our specific whips for pick and party that are either in pro shop yarn or pattern. One is neither. But I have 3 projects I'm currently sort of rotating between now. One is not been started, but it is a pro shop yarn. So the first one that I first cast on first thing on Thursday is in the middle of a row. Anyway, so this is not much right now. Okay. This is my loft, which is a 70% mohair, 30% silk mohair from Neighborhood Fiber Co., which is one of my local yarn companies. So Blue Ridge and Valley is the colorway, which is this. So I am knitting this mohair with a bear slack yarn, bear. Holding those together to make a sort of merled style, just to kind of make it more substantial, I guess. And I am knitting the pattern, which is called There's No Place Like Home by Amanda Massengill, which is a scarf, I believe. And it was knit for a Wicked themed, I don't know if it's an advent or just a release from some company, but it was knit for it's designed for mini games. However, it's like this really interesting-ish and simple 2-row repeat that is very fun. And I like that it has the applied. Is it applied? No, I guess it has the I-cord that you knit as you go. So I-cord on both sides. I have knit quite a bit considering that I started on Thursday and it's Saturday. This is 2 days of knitting. Not all I've been knitting, but this is most of what I've been knitting. So this is my There's No Place Like Home by Amanda Massengill, and it is in Blue Ridge and Valley Loft by Neighborhood Fiber Co. So the loft, as I talked about, if you saw my fall knitting plans, I have several skeins of loft, and I have discovered that I can't wear mohair, so I'm going to knit all of my loft up into shawls for my good call group, my dear friends. Oops, sorry. My dear friends, majority of whom all knit with me. We do a weekly call where we knit or sew, or one of us makes paper flowers, and we just do craft together on the call every week for an hour. And I find that I've been doing it since COVID, and it just is really valuable. I highly recommend it if you have community that's not close to you and you have the time and ability to just connect every week. Like, it's just so important to connect with people right now. So yeah, that is a shawl. That is my first main project for Pixie Party that I am sort of focusing on. And then my second Pixie Party cast on that I cast on yesterday does not look like much. What's this? So I am knitting what is ultimately going to be a project bag. So this is it's called the Paris Toilet Bag by Bonica. I will put the name on it. I am not going to try because I absolutely will. That is not. It's, I don't know. Maybe it's Norwegian. It's not a word I've ever heard before, so I am loath to butcher it. Right. So this is going to be the Paris toilet bag. I definitely, I think my gauge might be off, but I'm intending to use this for holding like 2 at a time sock projects. And I feel like that's pretty good size for something like that. I am also using my wee ones, schnauzer. Aren't they cute? So cute. So that is my beginning of round. I find these very helpful to keep track of where I am. And then I'm just knitting this in my 11 billion yards of Premier Basic that I have from the blanket. What is it called? It's like a square of the month blanket subscription. And the blanket I got was like gray and white. And it is a lovely yarn. It's definitely acrylic. It felt worse. But I think this will be a good project bag type yarn because it's fairly durable. So, and then my final that I've not started working on. This is only half of it. I already divided my skeins up into halves, so because I do my socks two at a time to up. So this is my main. This will probably be like heels and toes. So this yarn is from my local-ish Rising Tide Fiber Co. So this yarn is called Talbot Fingering, which is 75-25 half sock set. And the color is called Main Character, which perfect for Leo season. I think we're on Leo season. I'm not sure. Anyway, so my main character, is beautiful. I love that Rising Tide Fiber Co. is a Maryland dyer. Love supporting local. I am not so much of a Maryland fanatic that I am a Ravens or Orioles fan, but that's mostly because I never really cared for sports. I do sort of tangentially watch football, so I think we should be fine as far as like football picks and prairie stuff goes. But my actual only real the only the only football team I really paid attention to ever at all was my alma mater. So and I'm literally knitting nothing in my alma mater colors, so I really need to find some green and gold that I like. I did just buy some good orange and navy to knit some cute Bronco socks. Maybe I can find a cute little like colorwork horse, Bronco, stallion to put on them. But to start, I'm going to start with these. I don't know what pattern yet, so if you are participating in Pigskin Party and you are knitting socks, what pattern would you recommend I knit? Would love to hear from you. Yeah, those are the majority of my projects. Like, I'm not incredibly interesting right now. Like, I had three other projects that all had to just kind of get put on hold, and they're all summer projects, and I just didn't get very far because once I got to the stockinette in the ground for 11 million years, I got bored. So, yeah, right. So, if you're participating in Pigskin Party, I would like to hear from you about a couple of things. Specifically, what team do you favor to win? I guess to win the playoffs this year, or what teams do you favor to get to the Super Bowl? And number two, if you are participating in Pigskin Party, what is your first? What is the word I'm looking for? Not whip. Your first whip that applies or like is 4 points. I don't know what I'm trying to say, right? Okay. What are you knitting for Pigskin Party if you're participating in Pigskin Party, and how is it qualifying for points. And then what team are you on? So I am on the Wipers, I believe, which I'm on team number 10. So if you're on team number 10, feel free to say hi. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get to know you better. And if you're a Marylander, I'd also love to hear from you. No shade on your teams. Like, honestly, Marylanders, Baltimoreans are known for their team fandoms. They are very, very into their teams. And I live in Baltimore City, so I am aware of, like, today, like I mentioned, there are cyclists outside my window. So today is the Maryland Cycling Classic, which is I believe it's century, so it's 100-mile bike race all around Baltimore City. In addition to that, I believe there is an Orioles game, a sports ball game. Hi, sorry, not a sports ball person at all. My apologies. This Orioles. So there is an Orioles game. And there's also Baltimore Boat Fest at the waterfront park, so the whole city is shut down today, and that is fairly typical for Baltimore on a weekend. Also, it just, like, poured. Honestly, I was looking out my window because I was seriously concerned for the cyclists. Like, it was, like, no visibility at all, but it was quick and it stopped, so I think they're probably okay. Right. So, if you are new to knitting, new to my podcast, I would love to hear how you found me. And I would love to hear about what I would love to hear your favorite pattern for this fall, because I need some ideas for things that will qualify that are not 11 billion yards of stockinette, because that is one thing I'm knitting. That is going to be my background pattern. And until then, I will see you in the next one. Bye.
If you're new here, thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.